Aboro, Aboye, Aboshisha. And welcome to another Friday History Live from Ile, Ijuba, Ode, Otun. Alright, I am sorry about any delays in terms of my live not being streamed on Friday. But the weekend was a little bit busy with the IOCTT hosting its first annual conference. Alright, before I go further, let me offer the IBA before we begin. Open the phone in the room, Ulorumare over Jiki, Mojiloni, Mogun Meriaye, Iba Ila, Orun, Iba Iwo, Orun, Iba Ariwa, Iba Gusu, Iba Oba Igba Aye, Iba Orun, Okay, Iba Baba, Iba Yeye, Iba Atiwo, Orun, Iba She Igungun Kiki Gungun, Iba She Ori, Ori Inu, Ori Atiwo, Orun. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Security door, come up, please. Alright. Before I go into this week's history reading, I want to, just talk a little bit about the IOCTT annual convention that was hosted on Saturday at the Desperadoes Pan Theater. Alright, the first thing I would like to do is I would like to thank the IOCTT for leading the way in preparing for a future for our community and all the organizations or shrines and various bodies that they represent. I would also like to extend gratitude made by the elders as well as by the youths who sacrificed to prepare their presentations and contributions for the convention. Alright, we want to thank the shrines and we want to thank the elders, the youths, and all the contributors. Alright, and importantly, we want to thank the Desperadoes Pan Theater management for allowing us to use their facility. Us having the first national annual convention at this particular venue is historically important for several reasons. The first one being Ogun is the patron of steel pan, and secondly, because of the resilient history of the Desperadoes Pan Theater, all right, or if I want to say Pan side. They have a very long history, all right, beginning first as the Maribontas, all right, and then the SS Morocco, then the Dead End Kids, then the Gay Desperadoes, and finally the Desperadoes Steel Orchestra. The history is a long history of struggle, which ties in, of course, to the history of Africans and their contribution to the culture development of Trinidad, in particular steel band, calypso, mass, carnival, kambule, the drums, the tambu bamboo. It's a lot of history. Too much for me to mention in this short stream. But we want to thank the members of Desperadoes, the founders, the elders who have already transitioned, who made sacrifices and contributed to the development of the community band known as the Desperadoes, because they have a deep history in community and also with the Orisha community also. All right, so we were able to learn quite a bit from the history of Desperadoes. All right, now I want to go a little bit into decolonizing our mind. Right, I'm going to do a series on it because I actually started by the series by teaching on the post-traumatic slave syndrome, where I discussed the way in which we were affected and how a lot of the reactions to trauma over time has become adopted as social behavior that is so embedded in members of our community and race that we just believe it is normal, when a lot of the responses we give is not normal. These were traumatic events that our ancestors underwent, and the protective mechanism and the various means by which we coped with the trauma eventually became a part of our social structure, a part of our behavior that we considered to be normal. So the leaders and the youths who contributed to the convention spoke about a lot of things that we could implement to bring about solutions. So I want to thank the youths in particular for taking the time off to come, to participate, and to share. All right, it was very refreshing to hear many of them and their contributions. All right, I also want to give one more thanks before I go into the lesson, also to a lot of the leaders and the youths in Nigeria who recognize the struggle of decolonization and their efforts of making information available to us and sharing important lessons on aspect of the culture that we have lost is in fact a great boost to us decolonizing our mind, because it means we would move away from having a colonized mentality to having what our first ancestors brought with them. We are now regaining this information, this lost information, and this lost knowledge, much of which we appreciate from the generosity of those who are willing to teach and to share. All right, now, the first point I want to talk about, and I think this is going to be the only thing I'm going to discuss this week in this lesson on decolonizing of our minds. One of the important things that we have to learn to do because of how the slave syndrome has affected us is learning to manage our unmanageable lives. We must come to the recognition that our lives are unmanageable, as a result of which it affects us internally, and our emotions also has become unmanageable. The keynote speaker on Saturday spoke about Ifa being the new morality. All right, Ifa is a bit more than that, but that term that he coined is very, very important. All right, the impact of colonization on our mind the trauma condition, which has created new patterns of socialization and new patterns of social behavior, must be challenged, because the result of that was socially engineered confusion because of the abuse, because of the trauma it created, because of the new social patterns it created. This socially engineered confusion was also contributed to by what is called the Willie Lynch Syndrome. So, Mr. William Lynch introduced psychological components that he sweared would last for eternity because it would be self-perpetuating. But today, once we admit that our lives has become unmanageable because of the culture that we have lost and the traumatic responses that we have developed and the social patterns that we've also developed, the pattern of confusion, we must admit first that many of our people have totally lost their emotional control because of the trauma responses. The very first